Hello everyone, and welcome to lesson 4, Nurturing Emotions and Relationships, in our phase 4 of Unleashing Creativity. In part 1 of Nurturing Emotions and Relationships, we embark on a profound process, focusing on releasing guilt and shame, as these emotions often stem from past experiences and can significantly hinder our emotional expression and relationships. The quote for this lesson is, "Love in such a way that the person you love feels free." Now, this is something I've been living by for a long time now, because I actually got to experience the value of the act of doing so. I had the opportunity throughout my experience of life to experience a degree of what exactly that is and what it feels like to the one receiving it. And I realized then that there is nothing more liberating than having the experience of love while also feeling free to love in the way that naturally comes to you, without the burdens of expectations, without the burdens of emotions that may hinder our experience, like jealousy and maybe old traumas that we still have lingering that are making us react and respond to that experience through the pain of those denser emotional states. So it is a beautiful experience for ourselves and the ones that we choose to love, to feel a love that feels liberating and not so much of a cage enslavement that is bound by the weight of expectations and not accepting the individual and ourselves for all that we are. Bringing me into our next point, the power of emotional liberation. Understanding and releasing denser emotions like guilt and shame is a pivotal step towards emotional liberation. These emotions can act as heavy anchors, weighing down our emotional well-being and limiting our capacity for self-mastery and personal growth. The question is, why do we carry these emotional burdens? To answer that question, we introduce you to the emotional chart of consciousness, a powerful tool created by Dr. David R. Hawkins. This chart maps out various emotional states from lower to higher levels of consciousness. It provides insight into how certain emotions keeps us trapped at denser levels, limiting our potential from healing and personal development. Here I display the chart that maps out the levels of consciousness based on our emotional states. And as you can see here, it all goes from the lowest up to the highest as we are ascending and expanding and elevating as we allow ourselves to heal and release these emotions that are much denser in the chart, so that we can elevate higher by expanding our conscious awareness of self and others, so that we can better be suited for the higher levels of consciousness. Because it is when we step into these certain emotional states more frequently where we slightly change our paradigm as we do the process to do the healing and do the work that is necessary to overcome, transcend, and heal these emotional states that keep us in these lower, denser realities. Because our reality is based on our perception. And because our perception is only based on whatever we internally are experiencing and not someone else, it is a individualized experience that creates the actual paradigm that we are experiencing. So this is why not two people see the world the same, because if they are in the energy of constant shame and guilt of all of their behaviors and they believe that they've done something wrong, or they're not enough, or they're humiliated and they're blaming and are in despair, They are viewing life from a completely different point of view. They are seeing more evil in the world as opposed to someone that is in peace and seeing the world as perfection, right? Or they tend to be more in a miserable state of life because they are seeing the world by the way they are feeling about themselves or others. So it's very difficult to see the world with brighter colors when you yourself are in a position or state of mind that keeps you stuck in your, let's say, self-made hell, as opposed to someone that is creating a heaven on earth by being in the energy of love, as opposed to fear. So even fear in itself is higher than shame and guilt, which is why these are the primary focuses that we are going to work on in this particular lesson. Because for those who are constantly stuck in shame and guilt, the process of self-mastery becomes nearly impossible if you don't do the work to overcome these energies. And because these energies are so dense, it even becomes harder for you to comprehend and see the point of view that would actually liberate you from this despair and the shame and the guilt that you are feeling. So I hope that you can perceive this with an open mind and an open heart, if you're experiencing these emotions quite often, and that you know that there are ways that we can transcend and overcome them, and that does not have to be the reality that you experience, and that the shifting of paradigm is possible even for you if you really want the change and if you really want to experience more out of life than these emotions that keep you stuck and keep you in the perspective of seeing the world in such a black and white or denser way of being. Now, why the emotional chart of consciousness matters? Well, for one, it's the roadmap for emotional transformation. Dr. Hawkins' work is essential in our journey because it offers a roadmap for emotional transformation. It highlights the profound connection between emotions, consciousness, and personal growth. By using the chart, we gain a better understanding of how specific emotions hold us back and how to transcend them, right? So if you do want to look more into this and are interested in developing more of an awareness of what his work is about, I highly recommend any of his books. But overall, you have two of my favorites, which is Letting Go, The Pathway of Surrender. Then he has Power versus Force, The Map of Consciousness Explained, I believe is one of them. Just look up his name and you'll find his books. But if you want to get familiar with what his work is about, it's so ahead of his time, honestly. And it could be pretty complex to understand. But once you get the hang of it and a better understanding, it's very helpful. Another one of my favorites that also goes by the levels of consciousness, slightly different than David Hawkins, but very similar in the concept in itself. And he has a whole bunch of books that are just intriguing if you are into this, like Levels of Energy, Parallel Universes of Self. Another one is, can't remember. I would just do the research to look up on Frederick Dodson, and all his information should be able to come up on Google as well, so that you can get more familiar with the levels of energy and our emotional states and how that may be perceived and experienced at all levels of our emotional states and the paradigms that they create. Now, in this lesson, we will also have 3 parts to it, which I will go ahead and introduce all 3 before we start with the lesson in itself. For the first lesson, we will be releasing guilt and shame. Begin by recognizing and releasing guilt and shame stemming from past experiences. Understand how these emotions have hindered your emotional expression and relationships. For number 2, we have emotional intelligence. Develop emotional intelligence by understanding and managing your emotions effectively. This skill is crucial for self-awareness and building healthy relationships. And for number 3, we have building empathy. Empathy is the cornerstone of nurturing meaningful connection. Learn how to empathize with others, understanding their emotions and perspectives. Practices for releasing guilt and shame. For our first practice, we have here self-reflection. Begin by looking back at your life and identifying situations and experiences that have triggered guilt and shame. Dive deep into the root causes of these emotions and reflect on how they've influenced your actions and relationships. Now, when it comes to any beginning of any transformation, of any healing, or of stepping into any full potential that is desired, self-reflection will more than likely always be one of the first steps that we have to do, because we cannot recalibrate or heal or enhance something that we are not aware that is present. Like I mentioned before, we cannot fix or heal what we don't know to be present or there, causing or creating a unwanted experience for ourselves. So when it comes to this work, it can be tedious in the practices because we are literally dissecting every aspect of the foundation that is holding that full potential that we can truly become. We understand that these roots sometimes are not even our own, as they can be even passed down through generations before us through the process of epigenetics, right? So there's a lot of factors that play out into who we are and who we choose to be in our daily life because of the complexity of our very nature. You see, being a human, it's a beautiful experience. But it's a beautiful experience because within the midst of the chaos of all of that complexity, we still get to experience and embrace the vastness of all the potential that it can possibly be if we formulate and design the intention of the life that we want to experience based on the person that we truly are underneath the layers of all of these states of being that are not truly who we are, but have been imprinted within our experience because we have been unable to process and let go of the experience or the trauma or the memory of situations and scenarios that have been engraved in us or that have amplified our attention towards it to the point where it has reached its state of being out of the balance that allows us to just simply be in the energy and allow it to flow within us so that we can release it. So what that looks like is basically a person that is experiencing shame, let's put that as an example, is a person that is themselves self-criticizing, that is shaming, that is humiliated. All of these factors and these emotions and triggers and these experiences might come out of certain elements of conditioning and programming. For example, if shame is created by the belief that if I do this, I am wrong, I am dirty, I am whatever the story and narrative that's playing within your subconscious mind is. If that belief system is running before the experience occurs that makes you feel shame, you yourself will punish yourself because of the belief system that is now making you look at yourself in shame. So because of this belief that is running the system, when you experience that experience that created the shame, it becomes hard for you to let go and just allow it to be an experience that you had. And from that experience, you learn and you grow and you evolve, because now from the experience, you gain wisdom. Instead of seeing life on the bright side of that possibility, unfortunately, many of us hinder and anchor ourselves in that experience forever if we don't process and heal it eventually. And because the energy grows and grows and grows, because the more attention we give it, the more energy we give it, and the more energy we give it, the more life we give it, and the more life we give it, the more it becomes a part of who we think we are, but we are truly not that emotional state. We are just the experiencer of all of these vast emotions through the whole spectrum of emotional states that can be possible through our human experience. But because our belief is so imprinted, it overpowers the ability to just experience life for whatever choices we make, because the belief overrides that. And these experiences could have happened maybe when you were not fully developed and consciously aware to see the bigger picture of things, where you could perceive it from the outside and forgive yourself and have compassion for yourself as a human, right? Because maybe the belief was overpowering of all of that. This could have happened when you were a child or a teenager or an adult, whenever it did happen. But you yourself are shaming yourself if you are in the energy of shame and guilt. And because you yourself are doing it to yourself, you're more than likely to experience your external reality reflecting that back to you, as you are the creator of your reality with the emotional states and the energies that you emit externally. Now I'll go into explaining more of that in other segments or even another course, but for now I want to keep it really simple with the fundamental of what's the primary focus that we need to focus on before we can reach the next stages and levels of ourselves, because everything is going to correlate upon itself, one brick at a time. We can't build a building in one day. We can't grow the beautiful garden that we want to experience in one day. This is a process. So once we get used to the fundamentals of it, the process becomes a natural flow of the knowing of what we know we need to do to get to the root causes of anything that we want to overcome or find the resolution for. Bringing me into the next practice that is in complete essential of this process as well, which is journaling. Create a guilt and shame journal to document your feelings, thoughts, and memories linked to these emotions. Use these journals as a tool for self-discovery and catharsis, allowing you to untangle the complex web of emotions. Now, if you haven't noticed already, or you have, journaling is always going to be a part of the process, because we need to get it out in order so that we can see it and read it and say it out loud to know what is it that's going on within us. It's almost like attempting to channel it and purge it out of our system so that we can become aware. And the easiest way to do this is through paper. I personally always introduce and encourage journaling. It doesn't all have to be individualized journal. You can have just one for just the course, or you can be more of a more organized person and you want to make sure you separate it so that you can go to each and every topic individually, that's also an option, but it is not mandatory. It is not a necessary factor as long as you have one notebook that you are documenting your process. It's going to be crucial in your process of development and stepping into the full potential of your self-mastery, which is why journaling is helpful. As I mentioned before, it is documenting your process so that you can better comprehend and see, because right now where you stand, right, you can write something that you're feeling or expressing, an experience, revelation, right, an epiphany that you just out of nowhere you were able to be still enough to hear and understand and be in the inner knowing of what's going on within you, and you went ahead and wrote it down. And you might not think anything of it at that moment, but eventually, as you do more work on yourself and as you do the more of the tedious things that we do here, you're going to start healing and releasing and purging, and you're going to start feeling lighter. And with that lightness comes a level of clarity, a level of open-mindedness, and an open heart, because the more you heal, the more your heart opens up to more possibilities and more perspectives of yourself and others. So when you reflect back on that journal, maybe you read it the next day or even a year from now or maybe 5 years from now, you're going to see what you did not see at that moment. And when you reflect on past journalings of your process, it allows you to grow more fond of the human experience, because you see the complexity at a much more understandable ability for yourself. And that makes you more grateful for the experience, right? That allows you to forgive yourself more. That allows you to have more compassion for yourself, because you are now seeing where you were and you're seeing it as the observer and not so much as the experiencer. And with that comes so much wisdom and insight that you need it, right? Because what are we living for if not to know the self in the process of living life altogether? You know, we're here for how many years of our life? What are we taking with us through the experience? What are we gaining? What wisdom, what experiences are we cultivating so that when we transcend into another possibility in our eternal essence, all we really have is those moments that we gained wisdom so that we can expand our conscious awareness, so that we can create more with that. And the memories that came from past experiences that are the only thing that really lasts. The fun, the love, the pain, the suffering, all of these are what remains, not necessarily the monetary gains that we love to attach ourselves to and collect. Now I'm going to the next one here that I have is, the next practice is forgiveness, which is resonating with what I just said. Explore the transformative power of forgiveness, both for yourself and others, acknowledging that harboring guilt and shame often involves holding onto past grievances. Forgiveness liberates you from this heavy burden. So, overall, when it comes to releasing guilt and shame, because it is something that we are doing to ourselves more than it is something that is being done to us, it is crucial that we learn to forgive ourselves, that we learn to understand that we are human, that we are here to know who we are as humans and what are we capable of as humans, and learning to accept ourselves as if witnessing our child, let's say, experiencing life for the very first time, because you're not so attached to what you think something should be, and you are just in the allowance and the understanding of it through the perception of maybe your higher self. It is something worth experiencing and watching and witnessing, the same way If you watch a child discover balloons for the first time, they're so excited. They see all the variety of colors. They see that it's floating, so they get intrigued and curious about what is it that's standing over my head, floating over me. I want to grab it, right? And let's say that in the holding or the grabbing of the string that is tied to that balloon, the baby releases it. Because the baby doesn't have any form of a belief system that tells them that releasing that balloon is wrong and that it's a bad thing to do. When releasing that balloon, they just look at it go and flow up. And even though, yes, it is lost, but the experience of just watching it go in itself is an experience for that child to witness. And you see the level of innocence and the level of clarity and the level of moment that is present in that moment. That experience allows that child to now become aware that if the balloon is let go, it will float away. And in order for the baby to know that, that experience had to occur, even if it was a loss. But is the baby attached to the balloon? Not necessarily. Unless they had a few balloons already and they like balloons now. So they have created a meaning to the balloon, because only we can give life a meaning. And because only we can give life a meaning, a life that is primarily meaningless, but we define it based on what we choose to give it. If the baby has already developed an attachment to the balloon and cries when the balloon is released by themselves or by another, that's because the baby has built or created a belief system that they can't let go of the balloon because they like the balloon. And because they like the balloon, they want to play with the balloon. Because they want to play with the balloon, they want to make sure to hold on to the balloon and not let it go. And if they do, they'll get mad at themselves or someone else for not stopping the balloon from going away. So it becomes a moment that can create any emotional state, from anger to sadness, right? The same thing happens with shame. Let's say, just like that balloon, we are attached to someone in our life. And because we are attached to someone, because we like the idea of them in our life, because we like them as a person, we like the way they make us feel, we want to attach ourselves to this balloon or this person, just like the child did with the balloon. And let's say that something occurred in the relationship that made now that person walk away because of maybe an action that we did. So because of that action causing someone that we actually wanted to stay go away, we might build a shame within ourselves because we ourselves are criticizing and judging ourselves for our behavior, for our actions, because we choose to give that meaning to the situation. Now, what I want to introduce to everyone that I teach is that we have the free will to choose how we want to see our life experiences. And with that comes all the difference of how we experience life altogether. Because your free will is to choose how do you want to define this experience. There's two ways to go about that experience that I just gave you an example to. For example, if I feel sadness and grief and anger and heartbreak, I might get angry for a moment or a day or two. It really depends on the person. How tolerant are we of certain things? I might feel sad for a week or a month or a year. I might tell myself things that are either going to serve me or not serve me. Now, there's a lot that can happen within this experience, because a breakup can be used for your advantage or your disadvantage. You can learn from the experience, or you can allow the experience to destroy you. You can create with the energies of these emotions, or you can completely deconstruct or self-sabotage yourself even further. This is why not every two people live the same experience, because everyone has a simple choice of free will to choose, how do I want to define this experience? And if you're likely not to be self-mastered, which is the process that we're doing here, you might choose to self-destruct. You might choose to further self-sabotage yourself in the future with other experiences from the fear of experiencing that very thing again. You might criticize yourself and judge yourself for the actions that you took, therefore remaining in the energy of shame that keeps you in the lower density of your experiences, in a lower paradigm, only aligning with lower experiences, because you cannot remove yourself or release those energies and heal from that heartbreak. So with that choosing, you are not in the mastery of yourself, because you are allowing your emotional states to dictate and control your life, therefore keeping you trapped and stuck in your own self-made imprisonment based on the choices you made about how you wanted to perceive that experience. Now, when you step into the position of self-mastery, there's going to be critical moments and opportunities in these experiences. They no longer seem as denser as they once did, because you are in the higher realms of emotional states, because you choose to not be attached, because you choose to love people genuinely and honestly. And you understand that if them not being with you is what makes them happy, and all you want them to be is happy, whether it's with you or not, because indeed you truly love them, you want what's best for them, the attachment won't exist, because you would have enough reasoning and understanding of the human nature, especially of someone that you've probably been with and you have known for some time. So when you learn to understand people and know people and accept people for all they are, you quickly start to realize what would actually make them happy. Sometimes they don't even know what makes them happy, and that in itself is their responsibility to find what makes them happy, and more than likely it would be something that they would have to do on their own, because in our self-awareness of self and others, we know in self-mastery that we can't make others happy. Only they can make themselves happy, and we can only join them in that happiness as we perfectly align at the same frequency of happiness. But can you really truly be happy in the energies of shame and guilt? Maybe you can pretend to be happy, because at that level there's a lot of pretenders. But if you have to numb yourself, intoxicate yourself, entertain yourself, distract yourself from life, basically stepping into any form of escapism, then you have to quickly ask yourself, what are you escaping from? And why you feel the need to escape? Because you want to avoid the feelings that are happening within you. But I tell you what, once you are able to sit down, self-reflect, document your emotional states, your thoughts, your triggers, your behaviors, your coping mechanisms, right, through the journaling process, it becomes easier for you to see within maybe a more clear state of mind, rather than the chaos within you that's telling you one thing and then feeling another thing. I want to be happy, but I don't deserve happiness. I want this, but I don't deserve this. I don't want to even think anymore. I don't want to feel anything because I'm going insane, because you're not allowing yourself to just feel what it is that you feel and just allow it to just go through you like the wind. You're just holding on to it, just like you want to hold on to everything else. There's an attachment, a form of control, a codependency that is existing with you. And this is why self-reflecting is so crucial in the process, because we have to dig deep into the roots of why we are feeling that way. Why is it that I want to cling on to people and things and places and facades and illusions, right? Why do I feel the need for that? And once you get the hang of that, it's easier to forgive, as well as have self-compassion, which brings me to the fourth practice, self-compassion. Practice self-compassion by acknowledging your humanity. Just like everyone else, you make mistakes. Be gentle with yourself as you navigate through these emotions, knowing that healing is a journey. It's not going to happen overnight. I can't guarantee you that, but what I can guarantee you is that once you do the work that I'm giving you the blueprint to, at the end of this process, and even as you go little by little, you're going to start feeling lighter. You're going to start feeling more clearer. You're going to start to feel more fulfilled. You're going to find the moments that make you happy, with someone or without them. You're going to discover what these higher emotional states truly are when you learn to align yourself with them, when you learn to look for them in your daily life rather than looking for all the reasons why you should feel guilty and shame. We are trying to redirect your focus so that in the redirection of your focus and your attention and your energy, we elevate you into the domain of what it is to be self-mastered, so that you can live in the abundance of whatever emotional state it is that you desire, and you can quickly move on to the next one if you desire, where your emotions are not controlling and dictating where you stand, but rather you, as the conscious creator of your life, can maneuver and navigate through all of these emotional states with the intention of what is it that you need to experience based on what is it that you desire to live and discover and explore. Whatever it is influenced by, it doesn't even matter. It's you mastering yourself to the point where it is you who is placing yourself in your own paradigm by choice and not by attachment or comfort. Bringing me into the benefits of releasing guilt and shame. For one, emotional liberation. Just like I just explained to you that you'll be liberated from the restriction of only remaining in that paradigm. You will allow yourself to explore more of yourself, expand your awareness of self, elevate your levels of consciousness, therefore seeing more of the bigger picture. Therefore, it becomes a lot harder to criticize and judge and be prejudiced of others for where they stand, because you will soon understand that everyone is in their own journey at their own level of consciousness at the stage that they need to have in order for them to rediscover themselves from a different point of view. Just because something looks a certain way doesn't mean it is. Bringing me back to the emotional liberation. Releasing guilt and shame frees us from emotional shackles, allowing greater emotional freedom and well-being. Because besides the fact that we are emotionally liberating ourselves, we are also creating the foundation, the environment, the mindset, the body that we need to be in our well-being, to be in our harmony, to be in the abundance of our health and our sanity, right? Because we are maintaining the structure that would allow that to be. For number 2 would be enhance relationships. As we heal and nurture our emotions, our relationships with others can improve. We become more open, authentic, and capable of forming healthier connections. Because now, instead of projecting what's going on within ourselves and thinking it's someone else and not actually us seeing ourselves through someone else, the more we start to accept ourselves, forgive ourselves, and have compassion for ourselves, that is the same behavior that we're going to be exuding, because our energy is going to be emitting that same energy. because we only feel criticized when we ourselves are criticizing ourselves. So imagine if you were to remove that self-criticism, that self-judgment, that self-hatred is really what it is. When you remove that out of your equation, and it is possible, and don't let anybody tell you that you've been diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder and it's nearly impossible. Nearly nothing is impossible once you understand the potential that you have. If you believe that story, that will be your story. Understand this. If you choose to believe that as your truth, that will be your truth. Never allow anyone to limit you and your potential. I don't care what degrees they have. I don't care what school they went to. I don't care how many years of practice they have. If you want to go into that, the sciences and the quantum mechanic theories are there to justify what I'm telling you. We are creating our reality with the energy that we are emitting, with the consciousness that is observing it. If you choose to believe something that's going to disempower you and keep you stuck in the suffering and the internal hell that you're experiencing, then that will be your outcome. If you choose to believe that it is possible for you to heal and step into higher experiences of yourself, that you can truly experience and see the light at the end of the tunnel, then that's the outcome you would also receive. Because I can't even tell you, I've seen the impossible play itself out. But it's really, truly up to you. It's really up to who you really want to become, and you want it more than what you want to breathe. You want it more than you want it to be seen by others. You want it more than you want anything outside of that. Because you understand the value of what that is to you. Because you understand that by you doing this work and you reaching that pivot moment of yourself, you are transcending and transforming into another version of yourself that you have yet to experience. And, they choose to have you stuck, and they choose to limit people, and you have this disease and you're going to die tomorrow. And all these things, these are all storylines that if we choose to believe them, they will in fact be that. But you have to solidify your new core belief that you want to create for yourself, so that anything that contradicts where you want to go can't even stick, because you have solidified that core belief to such a degree that it is down to the seed element of the roots that actually create your roots. And that's how deep we're trying to go. Which brings me to the third benefit of releasing your guilt and shame: personal growth. This process is a significant step in our journey towards self-mastery and personal development. By creating space for new, positive emotions to emerge, we open doors to personal growth. So we open the potential for what is nearly perceived as impossible now to actually be possible later. It might not happen overnight, because we're not doing anything that's going to skip any steps here. This is a full-blown process, the true work of cultivating self-mastery, because we are going down to the root, into the core, and allowing ourselves to recalibrate and rewire ourselves in the position that's going to serve us. Bringing me into the conclusion of part 1. As in part 1 of Nurturing Emotions and Relationships, we've explored the importance of releasing guilt and shame and how these emotions are intertwined with our emotional liberation and personal growth. The emotional chart of consciousness created by Dr. David R. Hawkins provides us with valuable insight into these processes. By understanding the emotional state that keeps us bound and the steps that transcend them, we are on the path to building a strong foundation for self-mastery.